take all the water-soluble ingredients first, and you put it in a special tank, right? Which is at room temperature. All these ingredients that you see on this list will dissolve or float in water. All right, they're not oil compatible, they're water compatible. So you do the phase 1 first, water soluble ingredients. Then you move to phase 2, which is at the top, oil soluble ingredients. You have the squalane, the cetyl glucoside, etc. All these are going to be mixed together in a kettle, and they're going to be heated to a temperature of 170 degrees Fahrenheit or 77 degrees Celsius, right? So that will make them melt, not necessarily melt, but make them more easy to combine, because they're going to be, this is a good particularity of the oils. When you put oils in heat, they become more liquid. They become more flexible, more easy to handle. So you warm them up to this temperature, and then of course you let them cool down. When you let them cool down to a temperature of 110 Fahrenheit and 43 degrees Celsius, right? Then you will add vitamins to that kettle. So which vitamins are you going to use? You're going to use vitamins that are oil soluble in this case, like vitamin E. And even though you know vitamin C to be a hydrosoluble vitamin, this particular form of vitamin C called tetrahexyldiesel ascorbate, this is a form of vitamin C that is also soluble in oil. So this is very, very good. So why can't we put these vitamins in the kettle at the top, which is going to be heated? Because of course you already know that vitamins, after a certain temperature, they denaturate, they stop working. They get neutralized, they get damaged. You cannot heat vitamins or enzymes past a certain temperature because they break down. So you can only add them to the formula once the formula has cooled off and has been completely mixed. And then once the vitamins are added, you add the phase 1, which is the water soluble that we did in the first slide of this presentation here right now. So water soluble plus oil soluble plus vitamins at this point. We mix them well, and we keep them at that temperature of 43 degrees Celsius or 110 Fahrenheit. And then we start the cooling down cycle until they reach room temperature. And that pretty much creates that particular formula. Of course, there are other intermediate steps that come before putting these in the tanks and stirring them and heating them and all that. Those intermediate steps have to do with if we're using encapsulation, if we're using a delivery system in particular, if we're doing micronization, all of which we're going to see next that are necessary to use for certain ingredients. So did you know that microemulsions are about 100 times smaller than typical emulsion droplets? The truth is that these are very, very small particles, and they are having a much, much better effect on the skin. So basically, you will see that microemulsions are a higher quality than regular emulsions, and in cosmeceutical products, they can mark the difference between a cosmeceutical product with a clinical use or intention versus a cosmeceutical product that is just a product, if you know what I mean, right? So basically, that is exactly what I'm trying to say here. Now, another thing that's important to consider is the pH. If you look at this particular slide, you will notice that you understand the pH scale from 0 to 14 and 7 being the neutral point. So because certain products have a certain purpose, they have to be at a certain pH. Concentration is important, but pH determines how deep the product can go into the skin, right? And it's very important to understand how the skin will behave with that pH. So as you can see here, cleansers, toners, serums, and active moisturizers can be anywhere between 5 and 7. More close to 7 if we're talking about products for the eye area and for sensitive skin, and maybe more close to 5 for moisturizers and cleansers that are meant to help skins that are, stronger or harder or thicker, like oily skins and, etc. Then you have the home exfoliants, which sit in a pH that goes between 4 and 6, depending if we're talking about chemical exfoliants for home use, like a resurfacing glycosides cream, which will be more closer to 4, or your typical mechanical exfoliant with jojoba beads, which can be closer to the 6 pH, right? But maybe around 5 and 6, etc., because of everything else that is in the formula. But you have chemical peels ranging from 2 to 3 in a pH scale, which is very low, and of course, which will help exfoliate the surface of the skin. Yet at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, going over 7, you have your peel neutralizing formula, which will sit between 7 and 8 for the pH value. And soaps in general, which of course we don't have any in Pavonia that have a pH of 8 or 9. We don't have a soap. We used to have a seaweed soap, but that seaweed soap, which we no longer sell, had a more, acidic type of pH. It wasn't an alkaline pH like the soap represented on this scale, which would be more common household soap that you find in stores or supermarket. All right. So just so you know. So pH value can be more relevant than concentration, and that is what I'm trying to say here, where I always do the same comparison, like glycolic acid at 30% and glycolic acid at 50. If I ask you which one's stronger for the skin, I'm sure you'll say 50%, right? However, what if the pH is shown as such? The pH 1.8 and the pH 5, which one do you think is going to irritate the skin the most? Now, the pH 1.8 at a glycolic 30 is going to cause more irritation to the skin than the 50% at a pH 5. And that is because it's going to act faster on the surface and penetrate easier because it will break down the desmosomes and the cells on the surface of the corneum and penetrate deeper. So this is why it's important to look at the pH before using any products, especially when you are afraid of the possibility of sensitization. As far as ingredients, active and inactive, of course, we have natural and organic, and inorganic and synthetic. We know this because natural ingredients are all those that come from nature. However, organic ingredients are all those that have to do with carbon in their structure. But in cosmetics, organic means basically, or is actually a different meaning. It is more oriented to the understanding of a product that has not gone through any synthetic manipulation, right? A product that, even though it comes from nature, it has not been changed in any way, or it is free of pesticides. It's free of man-made intervention, right? Inorganic refers to anything that is not of biological origin, right? Like minerals. And then synthetic is anything that the man has made in the lab, right? Which is when even you take two natural ingredients, but you change them in a way that they become a third and different ingredient, and that means you have already used synthetic manipulation. So this is why I always use this picture, and I like to represent what an organic product is. In this case, of course, if you have truly organic products that contain no traces of any type of manipulation or the addition of any type of science or technology added to them, like in this case, the avocado mask by crushing an avocado. Yes, that will make your skin feel smoother, perhaps because of the oils and some of the vitamins which will penetrate through the skin if the skin is open and doesn't have any type of obstructions. However, you can't expect that homemade mask, which is very organic, and expect that to penetrate the skin completely without the intervention of some green technology. That's what I'm trying to say, that Bevonia is natural and uses organic ingredients, but we have to use green technology to make those ingredients really shine and stand out, to really do a great job. Because if not, you will not achieve deep results. So the green technology is basically using, for example, enzymes to micronize or hydrolyze, using delivery systems which use, phospholipids, etc. But everything is natural. So it's called green technology because it is from nature and it doesn't change the structure of the ingredient in any way. It just makes it more available for the skin. And it's used as a neutral aid that does not alter the ingredient in any undesired manner. And this is why it's so important to understand. So always think about going beyond organic, meaning you want to choose an organic product, but you want to also use the green technology along with it. All right. So always look and seek for the highest quality if you want to really achieve great results. And for that, you can use products that are safe, like Pevonia is one example, because this is our philosophy, to be green in our practices, and of course to use all ingredients from nature and phyto-organic ingredients as much as possible with green technologies that can help them enter the skin, and do a better job and give you a better result. And that goes all the way from formulation to packaging, because you also want to make sure that your packaging is recyclable and all the formulas are biodegradable. So as you can see here, ingredients in skincare products should provide at least these main benefits. Hydration, because you want to make sure they replenish water and leave the skin feeling supple. Nourishment, which will provide essential elements for proper cellular functions. Correction, because you want to repair current skin damage and provide accelerated aging. And protection, because you want to provide antioxidant benefits and shield from damaging external elements. So these four characteristics should be in every skincare product, depending, of course, on their purpose. But those are the minimum core values of cosmetic products formulation in order to achieve great success. But then, of course, what is the success of a product if it doesn't depend on the ingredients in the formula? And that's where we make the distinction with ingredients that they highlight themselves because of their action. And those are what we call active ingredients. Active ingredients are the ones that are the most important in a formulation because they are the ones responsible for the effect or the ultimate effect by themselves or by a combination of active agents themselves to achieve a specific purpose, whether you call it, rejuvenation, whether you call it like acne treatment, whether you call it lightening, etc. So you need to have active ingredients. Those active ingredients can be antioxidants or vitamins, can be peptides or proteins, can be enzymes, can be essential oils, can be acids, sunscreen agents, etc. So you have many, many different situations here, right? Tyrosinase inhibitors for lightening products, etc. Vitamin C is such ingredient that it's considered, an active ingredient. And as you know, I just wanted to mention because everybody knows it, of course, but vitamin C is essential for collagen formation. And of course, you must know that even though vitamin C is an antioxidant and an anti-free radical, it is either water soluble or liposoluble, depending on the formulation, like the one I just mentioned to you earlier. So you can have both forms depending on the formulation. But there are other antioxidants that are important as well. So you have vitamin C, you have vitamin D, you have vitamin E, etc. So, for example, the combination of vitamins C, B, and E are very important because they penetrate the skin very easily. They can rejuvenate the skin surface, change the texture, change, the appearance of aged skin, and of course, inhibit many enzymes that can contribute to the deterioration of the important components of the skin, such as collagen, elastin, etc. So you want to make sure that you delay the aging process by using these antioxidants. There are other antioxidants such as vitamin B3 or niacinamide and vitamin E. Vitamin B3, which is great for metabolism and regeneration, and also help with skin elasticity, right? And also help with pigmentation. So in case someone has, pigmentation that is there. But there's also vitamin E, which of course has anti-inflammatory purposes, and at the same time, also it helps to protect formulas from degradation. It can be used as a natural preservative, right? So it's important to know that. But one of the most important and common ones is vitamin A or retinol. And retinol, as you know, is one of the staples of rejuvenation because it can not only help restructure the epidermis, but it does help to grow the dermis because it helps with the collagen growth or metabolism, and it inhibits the damage of the enzymes that break down, collagen, elastin, and other components of the skin. So vitamin A is essential for rejuvenation. It helps the texture of the skin. It helps to eliminate or reduce fine lines and wrinkles. And of course, at the same time, it is very important for a healthful or for a very youthful skin look. I know that we are on time. It's the time where you would normally say goodbye to this class. I tried to make it a 2-hour class, but there's so much information I wanted to convey to you. So if you need to go for any reason, you can actually at this point log off. Don't worry, don't feel bad about it. I just need to continue and finish because I want to give you all this wonderful information. So if you can stay longer, that would be fine. It might take me another maybe 30 minutes. But if you must go, don't worry. Remember, this class will be recorded and you can watch it later if that's the case. But I will continue for now for those who want to stay or can stay. So basically, as you can see here, we have different types of vitamin A, the retinol palmitate, the retinol, and the retinal. These are vitamin A forms that, because of enzymatic action, can turn into a different kind of product. In this case, retinol palmitate can turn into retinol. Retinol can turn into retinal, and retinal can turn into retinoic acid. So as you see, these enzymes can change how the vitamin A can turn into a different form, which can have its own particular benefits. For skincare, retinol is the most safe and active form that you can use, which will give you a wonderful result, especially when used over time, right? Retinoic acid, on the other hand, is a very strong form, which is, you know, used mostly by doctors. You know, that's like tretinoin that I mentioned earlier, but it's also more drying and more irritating. So people using retinoic acid may experience a little bit of a um, I'd say irritation at first, especially because the action of retinoic acid is very quick, right? But just so you know, retinoic acid is an acid form. Retinol is an alcohol form, so it's better tolerated by your skin. Retinoic acid may work faster at first, but then you may see that the skin tends to, you know, get a little bit irritated and desquamated. All right, so you will see that little desquamation going on top. Um, so that is for the vitamin A, but I wanted to show you the important part of antioxidants and active ingredients. Of course, there are also peptides, as I mentioned before, acids, etc. But I wanted to mention antioxidants because of their importance. There are also inactive ingredients, which I already mentioned to you, those that are meant to help the formula in some way. We talked about the thickeners, you know, like the conditioners, the viscosity agents, you know, the gums, etc. We talked about the emulsifiers, the stabilizers. We talked about, you know, everything that can be added to the actual formula to help preserve its action and function, and at the same time deliver, right? So you can have bases such as cornstarch, natural, of course, bentonite, kaolin, which are clays, fibers. You have alginates, which are derivatives from seaweed, cellulose, which comes from plants, the scents and the color, which come from natural oils or pigments like minerals, etc. Those need to be added to formulas in order to also give the formula a very specific, you know, structure or texture. So you would probably want to know how to formulate according to the purpose. So basically, if you're going to formulate anti-aging products, you're going to formulate with peptides, retinol, vitamins, etc. If you need healing and soothing products, you need to look for agiline, bisabolol, green tea, licorice, etc. If you want to formulate for acne, then you need to look after salicylic, lactic glycolic, or if you need for lightening, like let's say let's get rid of a spot on your face, then you use also acids like lactic, salicylic, or you may use gentler ingredients that work progressively, such as diacetylbaldine, oligopeptide 68, etc. Now for body products, you can also use peptides and lactic acid, of course, but for body, the formulation will be a little different because the face is much more delicate than body skin. So that's why we normally do not recommend to use body products on the face or on the eye area because of the thickness of the formula, the concentration of lipids, the strength of the actives. They could be too much for the face skin. For hydration, you would look after hyaluronic acid, lactic acid, and for exfoliation, of course, you can use acids, you can use granules, you can use beads, etc. So it's all very important, and I'm showing you here a general ingredients list for many, you know, products in Pavonia, which have a particular purpose. So here, for skin cleansing, I'm showing you all the possible surfactants that you will use in cleansers, right? Many of which Pavonia uses at some point in some of the products or in all of the products, but not at the same time, right? So what I'm saying is that if you look at this list, you will notice that all of these are natural surfactants or actual emulsifiers used in cleansers that Pavonia formulates. But at the same time, you will have other ingredients in toners, right? Like sodium hyaluronate or hyaluronic acid, witch hazel, lactic acid, etc., etc. In the same way, you will see ingredients that will be used in sensitive products. You see the list? All those you will be finding in sensitive skin products. So the reason why I'm giving you this list to look at is to start familiarizing yourself with the ingredients you should look in cosmetic labels. When you look at a label in a product and the product says it's for sensitive skin, you want to make sure that you find at least one or two of these ingredients on the label, because if not, then that product says one thing but does another. I'm not saying in the case of Pavonia, because we're very legit, right? We're very true to what we pray or say in this case. We say, listen, we are going to have natural ingredients, no synthetics, and that's what we do. We're going to use really, truly good sensitive skin ingredients, and that's what we do. But I have gone to shops where I look at the labels of ingredients and it says the product has anti-aging benefits. And when I look at the ingredients, I can hardly find one that does that. So sometimes products can be deceiving and misleading, and that's why you want to make sure you get familiar with the names of certain ingredients. So you see sensitive skin, oily skin, combo skin or combination skin, dry skin. These are ones that you want to look for specific, product purposes. The same goes for vitamins and antioxidants, for moisturizers, for correctors, for rebuilders, etc. Depending on what you want to do. For rebuilders, then you have the stem cells, of course, at the top of the list, but you have also caviar. Rebuilders are used in mature skin or anti-aging products, and so are correctors, but they're used at a different stage during the process of recommending for mature skin. If it is based on enzymatic agents, then you will see, their functions, and of course the type of agent and what they can do: glycolate, lactic, pyruvate, malic, etc. These are general ingredients for skin pigmentation, like you want to lighten the skin. These ingredients you will look after. They're mostly, you will find these ingredients in Pavonia, but there are other ingredients that we do not use in Pavonia that are listed here, like arbutin there, So we're not using arbutin right now, but I'm mentioning arbutin because for people using other products, or have actually encountered other products in the past, they have noticed that they did not contain hydroquinone, which is not a good ingredient for skincare anymore. And so they have found arbutin as the first ingredient for lightening. But there are new ingredients for lightening as well, like tranexamic acid, but those are sometimes reserved for more advanced formulations like those like you see in Medicalia products, that it's also part of the Pavonia family. And these are ingredients in skin protection that include, of course, sun protection, right? Like titanium dioxide, zinc oxide, etc. So some of these are used by Pavonia and some are not. Like we don't use, the avobenzone, oxybenzone, the octinoxate, octisalate. Those we're not using, and much less the ones under, except dimethicone and cyclomethicone, of course, which would be protective. As I mentioned before, they come from silica, not silicone oil. And now we can talk about very briefly on the extraction of ingredients and delivery systems. And the extraction of ingredients is how they come from nature, right? So there are typical industry extraction methods such as steam distillation and hydrosols, absolutes, expression or cold pressing, and CO2 based. So basically, the steam distillation is used through, or is a method that uses controlled steam flow to separate, extracts from their sources. It can be used for the extraction of essential oils. Steam distillation and hydrosols is a method that has its drawbacks, but it does have its pros. The absolutes is an extraction method that uses solvents that separate more in a chemical form the extract from the source, right? Sometimes it uses a strong solvent, sometimes it uses gentler solvents, right? And in particular, this absolutes extraction method is used for flower extracts. The expression or cold pressing is the separation in a mechanical form for a component from its source, like an oil from a peel of a fruit, or like citrus, for example, like when you are trying to get lemon oil. Yeah. And then there is the CO2 based method, which uses carbon dioxide for most applications. In Pavonia right now, the methods that we're using are the CO2 based mostly, I would say about 95%, and the steam distillation as well. Now, the reason for using the CO2 is because CO2 is a very convenient process. It's, something that comes from nature. It's carbon dioxide from nature. It's very easy to handle. It works for most applications. Almost you can extract everything, right, with CO2. It's a sustainable technology, and it uses, nothing that is harming to the source that you're going to be extracting from, right? So the extract that comes from this technology with CO2 will be completely unadulterated, and at the same time will be pure. And this is very important. So there are many steps for this to happen. I'm not going to go through these steps. It will be here on the slide for you. But just so you know, this method uses a combination of temperature and pressure. And because of that combination of temperature and pressure, you can turn a gas into a liquid solvent. So the CO2 will turn from gas into a liquid. And this is why you will be able to collect the extract on a separate container at the end of the process. And the good thing about this is that by modifying the temperature and the pressure, you'll be able to reuse the CO2 in a sustainable process that doesn't really cause any spend on the environment. So the importance of the CO2 technology in terms of temperature and pressure is that depending on the pressure, of course, the temperature you will more or less maintain consistent, but the pressure, you can vary the pressure and extract a particular type of material. Like, for example, at 100 bars of pressure, you get hydrosoluble material. So, for example, let's say chamomile extract, right? In a product, in a Pavonia product, you have chamomile extract. So if you're using chamomile extract or bisabolol, which is an alcohol, but it's hydrosoluble, this can be extracted from the chamomile flower at 100 bars of pressure. But if you increase the pressure to 200, now you can extract the oil from the chamomile. You can get the essential oil of chamomile, or you can extract another oil component from chamomile, which is azulene, right? The azulene that you see in products that we use in Pavonia in um, serums, and then we also use for color in certain products or like toners, right? So azulene is a great extract that suits the skin and has the blue color, right? And that you get from the same source. The only difference is that you get a more pressure to, application at this point. But what happens if you go even higher? If you go higher in pressure, you can extract more dense material like resins, fatty acids, waxes from chamomile, etc. So you can do much more from the same plant, and it's recyclable. So it's actually really good. So that's why we consider um, these methods, in particular the CO2, to be very, very good for the environment. Now, as far as delivery systems and encapsulation, we have several, as you can see here. I am going to show you all of them in a moment. So the first one is liposomes and unispheres. You probably are very familiar with this. It's a one layer, you know, or better said, it's a one capsule with a double layer. That's what I meant. A double layer, but a one capsule type. So one container that has the actives in there. The actives will come out when the liposome breaks, and that's it. It has quick absorption. We use this technology for a standard, expedited, and protected delivery of actives. So you will find it, for example, in the stem cells and the Youth Renew SPF products in Pavonia. All right, so we use the liposome and the unisphere. Liposome and unisphere are almost the same, just with a different name. But we also use oxysomes. The oxysome is a different type of capsule. This one has, you know, a core that has vitamin C in the form of magnesium ascorbyl phosphate and a protective wall made of vitamin E. All right. Where do we use this? We use this for the delivery of vitamin C in anti-aging applications. So we actually have a dedicated product that contains oxysomes in Pavonia. The reason for this is because it will preserve the stability and potency of vitamin C when it enters the skin. So the product does not oxidize too quickly or become very weak, which is something we want to avoid. But one great advantage of this is that it has time release technology. So this particular capsule can release over several hours, helping the skin to achieve a target in the synthesis of collagen throughout the day or night. And this is very important. We also have spherulites. Spherulites are used for exfoliation and with enzymes and deep hydration, in particular within Pavonia uses. So you will find it in the enzymospherate peeling cream and also in the eye gel products. And the reason why spherulites are special is because they have a double layer, or better said, each of the multi-layers have a double layer. All right, so it's multiple layers in a multi-shield structure with double layers in each structure shield. All right, so the advantage of this is that you can have also time release technology with separate ingredients being delivered at different stages for better absorbency. So hyaluronic acid, for example, can be put in these little spherulite capsules. We have the micromatrix, which is a technology that we use in some acne products, like those for teen acne. We call that Spateen line, and it helps to deliver, you know, organic salicylic acid to go into the skin and, of course, kill bacteria, and at the same time exfoliate the skin. Also work in a time release system. We have tegospheres, which of course are encapsulation systems for body applications. We use this technology in the Tropical products, right, to resurface the skin. So basically, it contains retinol inside, which when it senses the pH of the skin, this capsule opens and releases the retinol outside, so it's better absorbed. And it helps to deliver more retinol than if the retinol was on its own in the formula, you know? So because it's a body application product, it needs to be encapsulated for better action than if it is with the face, because body absorption takes a little longer than face absorption. Remember that body skin is thicker, all right? And it may have other obstacles for absorption rather than, the face. Then we have the microspheres, which is a technology found in Lumaform products to lighten the skin. And microspheres basically contain diacetylbaldene. And the diacetylbaldene is basically an extract from the bark of a tree in Chile that helps to inhibit tyrosinase. So it actually makes pigmentation go away. Of course, it is a slow process, but it helps to lighten the skin without the use of acids. The advantage of using diacetylbaldene is that, for example, in certain applications like sensitive skin where you cannot use acids, or at certain stages of pregnancy where women can get hyperpigmented and you cannot use an acid, you can still use diacetylbaldene as a safe alternative to lightening the skin when acids are not the way to go. And we have the biomimetic microliposomes, which also help with lightening the skin. They are also present in Lumaform products, and they have this technology which fuses with the outside of the skin and delivers the peptides into the skin to block tyrosinase and, of course, help lighten the skin. So also in Lumaform products, as I mentioned earlier. Now we have other Pavonia technologies, for example, the microéclatage, which is used for caviar manufacturing. This is a 4-step process, which is very easy. Basically, this is how we make the Pavonia caviar cream and serum, right? And also the toner and the cleanser and the eye product, etc. All the timeless products that we have contain caviar that has been actually processed through the microéclatage technology. This is a very natural technology that doesn't damage or change the caviar in any way. What it does is actually extract the internal material in the caviar row, right? So that you can get only that intracellular component that is active, and you can discard the skin from the row, which is what contains the smell and all the fishy, aspect, right? So this is a machine that is working like a centrifuge with inner walls that are texturized like a grinder, which at slow speed, start spinning to remove the outer skin of the caviar. And then the inside of the material, which is separated as a liquid phase or fluid, is condensed, and then it is collected and used in the rest of the manufacturing process, where the skin is, of course, discarded away. So that is the microéclatage system. We also have microemulsification of other lipids, not just like the microemulsion that we talked about earlier today, but this is microemulsification of lipids. In this case, we're going to talk very briefly about microretinol. Microretinol is a form of retinol that Pavonia has that is much better than regular retinol. This form of retinol, called microretinol, is a stable form that goes beyond the formation of retinol. As you can see here, you have retinol palmitate plus hydrolase gives you retinol. But then a second step, which forms retinol plus keratin dioxygenase, forms microretinol. And this microretinol is a more stable micro emulsified and fragmented particle size of microretinol that you will be using in the microretinol line, which is anti-aging in Pavonia. This microretinol is a compound that is stabilized with vitamin C and vitamin E. So you have the three most important antioxidants together. You have the vitamin C, the vitamin E, and of course the vitamin A in the microretinol. All right. So this is what you get. The top picture shows you what happens with retinol, the particle sizes of retinol. But the bottom picture shows you what happens with microretinol. So basically, you get more of the actual component going out and basically diffusing or dispersing into the skin. So less actually gives you more. And this is thanks to the microretinol technology of microemulsification. So what is this technology? It's basically using an enzyme called keratin dioxygenase. When you use that enzyme, you create that microretinol structure. And this is, well, I have to say it. I have used it myself and I really, really like the effect. Makes your skin super smooth, much faster than using regular retinol. So I do recommend it. Microretinol is also more stable, reduces chemical breakdown and oxidation, and absorbs much more quickly than standard retinol. So there are reasons why you want to use microretinol, of course, and these are all advantages that you want to pay attention to, right? And this is how it will work within the skin. It will work to regenerate all the disarray layers of the epidermis. And that's at first, because over time, as macroretinol accumulates within the skin, it will go into the dermis and enforce collagen too. So first, it will work on the epidermis that is damaged. And as you can see from left to right, the damaged skin gets regenerated, evened out, and refilled because of the synthesis of new cells. But after that happens, then it starts renewing the dermis as well by stimulating collagen formation, which is very important. So as you can see here, we also have other processes such as micronization. This is mechanical micronization, which is a technology that we use and we apply on dry hydrosoluble ingredients where the particles are reduced to micron size. As you can see the before and after, all of these particles become so small that they can enter the skin very easily. They help with absorption and distribution. At the same time, it concentrates the nutrients for the skin, and it's better in every single way. So where do we use this micronization of mechanical action? It's on the powders that Pavonia has that need to be reconstituted with water. So the seaweed powder, desert heat, the new cotton mask that is a powder, that's exactly how we use this micronization of mechanical origin. But we also have another type of micronization called enzymatic hydrolysis. And the enzymatic hydrolysis is achieved through the use of certain enzymes that, of course, will break bigger, heavier molecular size particles like proteins. For example, we're going to use, collagenases and elastases, which are enzymes that are going to break down, of course, collagen and elastin respectively. And that's going to transform that protein into either a polypeptide, a peptide, or an amino acid. So this is why it's important to understand that even though we are using natural components, we need to use this enzymatic technology, for example, which is a green technology, to make these particles of protein smaller, because bigger proteins like collagen and elastin in an organic form do not enter the skin. They stay outside. So we still use the organic form, but what we do is use this green technology to make it smaller so that it still enters the skin and does its job. See? So that's the importance of this. And last but not least, on these technologies, we have the freeze-dried, right? Which, of course, I'm not going to go through the steps, but basically what it tells you is that we can make a product very fine and very refined, if I may say so, create a product that can actually be preserved without any preservatives, be at 100% concentration, absolutely pure, and ready to be applied at any time just by adding either water or an activating solution. So we use freeze-dried technology, which is, advanced technology for preservation. You may be very familiar with, because freeze drying is nothing new, but it is it is actually a step up in skincare, which not many companies actually utilize, right? Because it's a very expensive process. However, Pevonia does it because we want to deliver the best ingredients. Of course, this all happens in two processes: a preparation process that uses hydrolysis, and then an actual freeze-dry process that makes the ingredient turn into a powder. And this powder is a powder that is completely sterile and ready to be used whenever necessary. And of course, goes through this process in a special freeze-drying machine, right? And it's a slow process. It's not a fast process. And it is then put in flasks, as you can see here, for the stem cells Phyto Elite freeze-dried that we use in the professional treatment. In Pavonia, we do deliver ingredients also through masks. I just wanted to mention to you that we use creamy masks, which may stay dry or moist on the skin for basic hydration and soothing and sealing effects. But we also have collagen-based masks or veils, which are good for deep hydration, plumping, soothing, and repairing. Like, for example, you have the OxyVital mask, right? Then we also have the high performance masks, of which you know two, which are the soft lift off and the hard lift off. The soft lift off are used for calming and soothing, whereas the hard lift off masks are for toning and lifting. If I tell you very briefly what these masks do and how they work, I'm going to focus very quickly on telling you that the soft lift off mask, as the name implies, are masks that when you apply them to the skin, they dry into a gelatinous consistency that can be peeled off the skin, right? And these masks, of course, achieve that consistency because they contain natural alginates, which are, of course, extracts from seaweed. However, they are not containing any seaweed protein, which makes the mask absolutely safe for anyone with, seaweed allergies. And it does not contain iodine either. So the alginates do not contain iodine. So anyone allergic to iodine is safe and they can use this treatment. Also, there are specific minerals such as calcium and sodium that help to bond together, producing with the alginate that very soft but gelatinous texture mask. You will find these in the Luminous CNC, the Plantomere, and the Skin Fit as examples of the soft lift-off mask for soothing, cooling, hydrating, toning, repairing, and even rejuvenating, right? So these masks will maintain a very moist microenvironment under them. And as you should know, these masks are applied to the skin at room temperature, but are left until um, the masks harden, which is usually 15 minutes, right? So in 15 minutes, you can remove the mask. Don't remove it earlier than that because the mask will not set properly and it may actually, come apart. Now, the hard lift off is more of a hard mask, right? Which contains calcium sulfate powder, which reacts to magnesium trisilicate and water. So when you put calcium sulfate with magnesium trisilicate and warm water, you create a reaction that makes the minerals to clump together and harden, right? And because this will create a reaction with the warm water, it will heat up, all right? It will heat up and escape as the mask cools down. So basically, it will take a reaction that will depend on the temperature of the water. If the water is hot or warm to hot, the reaction will happen faster. But you have to be careful because you don't want to make the client uncomfortable feeling like they're burning or anything. So by using warm water is just enough. And that produces a very nice sensation of heat over the skin. What is the advantage of this? That it creates a bithermal effect. That bithermal effect basically means that the mask will warm up, creating vasodilation and opening up the skin, at which the components underneath the mask will penetrate the skin. And after 15 minutes also, the mask will cool down to the point it will feel very cool, right? And will actually help the skin to vasoconstrict and seal, keeping all those components in there. So where will you find this? You will find this in the anti-free radicals mask, the Myoxy Caviar for Her, and the Rosacea mask as an example of the hard lift off mask. And so this is how you achieve this particular, hard lift off bithermal effect in Pavonia. Now we're approaching the end of the class, but I wanted to actually show you very quickly about packaging and labeling because this is very important. As you know, the packaging is just as important as the formula inside. So the type of packaging, whether it is glass or a type of acrylic or plastic, etc., it will depend on also the product that is contained within, because certain ingredients react better with certain forms of materials. But in every case for Pavonia, that will mean that the material will have to be recyclable. And this is very important. Also, you have to consider, that the packaging will be good enough to maintain the product for the longest time. But before going into the labels, which is the outside of the packaging, I wanted to mention some things that are important to consider. Everybody at some point has read a label, and there are labels on products that we eat, in foods, right, that are prepared, and there are labels on cosmetic products and on detergents and household products, etc. There are labels almost on everything that you use, which tells you what's inside that container. So in cosmetics, there is an international system or nomenclature, which is important for the labeling consistency. So a label can be read anywhere in the world and mean about the same, right? One of such systems is a system for uniformity called the INCI list. And this actually has a very specific protocol in which the ingredients must be listed from higher to lower concentration or quantity. So that helps you when you read a label to understand which ingredient has more percentage in a product and which ingredient has the least percentage in a product. At the same time, it will try to show you what the ingredient means or says or what it really does. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not the case. All right. So there are very specific rules for this. And, organic ingredients are listed differently than, synthetic ingredients or regular ingredients. And the INCI nomenclature also adapts to products with natural ingredients or botanicals using what it's called the Linnaeus system, where the genus and species of the plant are described in Latin language, right? So for example, as you see there, The safflower oil is explained as Carthamus tinctorius because, of course, everybody knows what Carthamus tinctorius is all over the world if they look at a database. But safflower, maybe the name is given in a particular country. Another country, they may call it a different thing. You know, they could call it star flower, or they could call it just, I don't know, a yellow flower, whatever. You know, so basically that's the importance of the INCI system. So in the labeling, you will have the top and the back. The top of the product with the label, sometimes the top contains the back as well, but in most cases there are two labels. Sometimes the labels are affixed, sometimes the labels are printed on the products. Sometimes the labels are on the outer box of the product and the inside packaging does not contain the label. So you always need to look for it or consult a manual that will tell you what is in that product. So as you can see here, the many portions of the label, uh, some of which is very specific and obvious to read. You know, the caution, the shelf life symbol, the recyclable symbol. We're going to see the symbols in a moment, but just wanted to show you. The most important thing about the label is the caution and the ingredients. So you really see, of course, some of these will have the directions for use, which are also important because you need to know how to use the product. But everything is important to a certain extent. I mean, you should not have information that is not useful. So basically, the INCI is a system that is, you know, international and it's worldwide. It's used in many countries and it's easy to recognize. And that's why it is on most products. So basically what INCI does is show you the name that is universal for a register name or a trade name, etc. So sometimes, you know, the names are the same, sometimes they're not. So that's why the INCI gives you a much more accurate reference to that ingredient if you want to look for it. By the way, what I just showed you, the INCI list there with some names, that's not Pavonia's example. That's just a regular example of INCI all around the world. In the US, we use CAS numbers, but that's not important for you because this is for an internal system of registration of actives and ingredients for us to really identify specific sources, etc. In your case, you would go by the INCI, and for more information, you will use also the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. The MSDS basically shows you not only the ingredients component in a product, but also specific characteristics such as like point of boiling, pH, etc. Some companies will put the concentration of products, some companies won't, especially if the concentrations are proprietary and they don't want to release that information. Of course, if they're nice to you and you ask for one or two actives, they may tell you what the concentration is. But things like the pH and a smell, the color, the texture, and of course the full list of ingredients should be on the material safety data sheet. And you, as an professional therapist, should have access to that. So you have to contact the company and tell them to give you that information, which comes as a separate file with all those instructions, not instructions, but data and information. It's not printed on labels for products, just only the ingredients. But for additional information, it has to come separately, like this. This kind of sheet is the one that Pavonia offers to clients, not clients like the guests, but the professionals. These sheets are not available to the public. They're available to the professionals, the therapists, okay? Very important. And these are the symbols that, of course, are on the packaging. Recyclable symbol on the top left. Consult the manual on the left bottom. Go green, of course, which is about sustainability in the top right. And in the bottom right, you have the duration of the product after it's open. So the 12M means 12 months after opening. And that's an indication of when you should use the product by due date, or the product may go bad and then you don't want to use it at that point. But what is all this when it comes to reading a product label? Basically, the most important part of this is understanding the ingredients on a label. As you can see here, I have 3 examples of labels, and one of those is a Pavonia label, but the other 2 are not. As you can see, some of those sound very synthetic, and they are. And you will see that one of them, or both, the black one on top, the big black one, and the smaller left tiny blue one, which I have already told you that those 2 are not Pavonia. The Pavonia one is the blue one at the bottom, the bigger one on the right-hand side. But the smaller one on the left-hand side and the black one show you parabens. They show you, fragrance. They show you ingredients that you may not want to have. And especially look at the black one. It shows elastin and collagen almost at the end of the list. A long list of products. What does that mean? It means that those ingredients, the elastin and collagen, which are good ingredients, are left at the bottom of the list because they are in a very low concentration. They are not in high concentration. Of course, there could be reasons why the elastin and collagen are in such low concentrations for that product. Maybe they're not the primary ingredients in the product, but you have to really look at why they're actually listed there if the product is said to be an anti-aging product. And then the important thing is to look at the first 5 or 10 ingredients on the list to be the most important ones to define the purpose of the product. If within those 5 or 10 ingredients in the beginning of the list, you do not find the purpose of the product by the ingredient represented there, then that product may not be your best choice. And that's why you need to look closely and understand what's going on there. So to read a label, you will know that water is usually the highest percentage of a product, usually anywhere from 65 to 95%. And just so you know, water will be usually the first ingredient in many creams, unless a cream is the type that contains no water and it says that it contains some sort of like fruit juice or something like that. But water is certainly a high percentage and will vary depending on a cream will have less water than a cleanser or a toner, of course, right? Now, one thing to know is that anything listed usually behind fragrance is likely in less than 3% of the product concentration. So look at that. If you find important ingredients listed after fragrance, then you know that they're not in a high concentration, which is a pity. But again, before emitting any kind of criticism, you have to look for why that ingredient is listed there. So my recommendation is for you to contact the company and ask them why that ingredient is listed there and what is the purpose down there. All right. Now, remember, in the case of Pavonia, we do not use fragrance, so that's not applicable to us. We only use natural aromas, and everything that we put, of course, is highly concentration, especially towards the beginning of the list, which is where you'll find the most important agents. What I'm showing you right now is the breakdown of a typical ingredients list for a brand name X. So this is not a Pavonia brand. This is just an ingredients listing on the back of a label of a product, right? Of a product that is not Pavonia. And I quantified the number of percent or the percentages of what you would find or look for. As you can see here, 90 to 95% is water, dimethicone, carbomer, PEG, almond glycerides. Then you have sodium lauryl sulfate, cocametyl propyl hydroxysultane, you see, look at all those ingredients. So by having sodium lauryl sulfate, you know that that formula there foams. that formula has a negative surfactant, an anionic surfactant. So that formula is going to foam, and most likely it's going to have a cleansing action. So somehow this product is probably either could be a shampoo, it could be a cleanser, it could be, you know, an exfoliant product that foams, etc. So that's from the top just by looking at that one ingredient. Of course, if you keep looking at the other ingredients, then you will get more and more accurate and say, huh, no, I don't think there is anything that will exfoliate here. So no, that's not an exfoliant. Or I don't find anything that looks like a shampoo. So no, that's not a shampoo. And so far, that's how you go. But you can see that fragrance is at the bottom of the list, which in this case means that there's nothing less than fragrance. So that product is at 1% at that point, right? So that's just one example. Then you have another example here, which is brand Y. Again, this is not Pavonia. And I underlined the ingredients that I didn't like. For example, petrolatum, which is Vaseline. You got this ester, myristate, which is also along with mineral oil. You have methylparaben. And those are not good ingredients for the majority of skins because they will clog the skin. And then, of course, you see where fragrance is, which means if we go by the rule of anything under fragrance is under 3%, you can continue going down the list. And then I actually, you know, put tocopherol acetate there to be highlighted because that's vitamin E, but it's at the bottom of the list. So when you see vitamin E at the bottom of the list, you may say, why are you wasting such a nice antioxidant? But the answer to this now, and this is why it's important to ask the company, is because in this case, vitamin E is not used for the skin. It is in such minute concentration because that vitamin E is used for preservation purposes. So it's actually there to help slow down the advancement of contamination in a product. All right. So that's why you have that. It's an antioxidant for the container, for the formula, not for the skin. So in that case, that justifies the reason why the vitamin E is there. But that may not justify the reason why you use all of those other not so good clogging ingredients in there. And you can see that mango seed butter and cocoa seed butter, which are two natural nice ingredients, are very close to fragrance. So most likely, you know, they're not in a high concentration. But if you look up, you'll see that you get water and then you get shea butter as the two main ingredients. So this is a product that is probably very smooth, and at the same time, because of the concentration of shea butter, I can tell you that shea butter at a room temperature will actually solidify. So this is likely a product for the lips. This is a product because of the petrolatum, you know, and the mineral oil, and it has so many preservatives, as you can see, that it actually implies this is a product that will be used on the lips and that which has to resist contamination because of the constant application to the lip area, which is contaminated, of course, and then will be put away. So this is important to consider. That could be either a lipstick or even though I don't see any particular color here, it could also be a lip moisturizer. All right. So, but that kind of like gives you the clue of why a product is created like that. I hope this has been interesting for you to see. You see? Now, this is a breakdown of a Pavonia product. What you see here is a full list of Pavonia ingredients on a Pavonia product, and of course, why each product or why each ingredient is there. So I put an arrow next to each one of them and their specific reason or what they do or where they come from, etc. So I'm not going to go through this because it's a lot, as you can see, but it's nice to see and analyze, and it tells you what a good formulation stands like, or what it should be. All right. So hope that this helps to really see the whole point here. And because we're almost very close to the end, I'm just showing you one more example here of another example from Pavonia. This is a serum. You can see that the first ingredient is water, so it's about 65%. Then magnesium ascorbyl phosphate lecithin tocopherol, it's about 10% concentration in this formula. So I put it in a color-coded a green. Then you get glycerin sodium hyaluronate polysorbate 20 carbomer, which is about 5 to 1%. All right, so it could be anywhere from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, kind of like that. And then the rest in black, phenoxyethanol, caprylyl glycol, etc., all of which are sugars, are in the order of 1% or less, which is what we use in Pavonia as a stabilizer and preservative. We don't use parabens, we use these sugars, which are at 1% or less. So whenever you find phenoxyethanol or caprylyl glycol or ethyl hexyl glycerin in a Pavonia product, you know that anything above that is over 1% and under that is under 1%. All right? So that's important for you to realize. And that's part of what makes Pavonia unique, of course, being an eco-friendly spa line for over 30 years now of presence in the skincare market world with products from organic and natural origin that are absolutely safe and non-controversial, where we have more than 300 products for face and body, where we use professional products for the spa and home care products that are of clinical quality with high-tech ingredients and of course, all green technologies, nothing synthetic, but which also go through clinical testing. So all the formulas that we have, and this is the end of the class now, all the formulas that we have go through 7 steps before they can go out and be sold as a professional product or as a home care product. So these 7 steps are necessary. The challenge and safety test, which determines resistance to microorganism, the PAO determination method for shelf life, the microbiological report for bacterial count, which makes sure it's 0 before it leaves the lab, the certificate of analysis, which determines the product characteristics, which will be written in the MSDS form that I showed you before. So the product smells like this, it feels like that, it has this color, etc. The study of acute tolerance, which determines irritation potential, which must also be 0 before leaving the lab, so the product cannot irritate the skin. The stability test, which determines how the product will age, that will help with the shelf life as well. So we know that a product will be guaranteed to last at least 3 years from the moment of manufacturing. And last but not least, the clinical test and efficacy test, which is determining the effect on users. So for that matter, we send all Pavonia products to the Department of Drug Sciences in Pavia in Italy. This is a very respected university that has a medical department that does drug evaluations for many skincare companies and also for medical companies. It's done by doctors. They do clinical testing, clinical trials. They recruit people. They use the product. They examine them. They follow them up and they create their report. So all Pavonia products, as you can see, go through very stringent process of lab testing and clinical testing on actual individuals, on actual people, because we do not test on animals. That's very important. Remember, we have absolutely no testing on animals. We are against that. So you know that the products are safe, the products are green, and the products are there to be effective, to help you achieve results, because that's what's quantified in this lab and also clinical testings. So remember to say goodbye today. Remember that all products need to be used in 2 phases. The first phase, which is the spa treatment phase, which can be alternated with the at-home treatment phase or phase 2, where you need a minimum of 6 series of treatments, which is recommended. You may do 1, you may do 4, but 6 is a recommendation, right, for best results with monthly maintenance. And for phase 2, which is an at-home treatment, is basically using the products made for self-care that have a continuation synergy from the spa treatments, professional treatments, into home. And the difference between Pavonia and many other brands is that our products for home use have a high concentration, very close to the professional concentration used in the spa treatment. So this is because we want to give the person the results they want. They just have to allow their skin cycle to do its job. So with this, I actually finished my presentation. I recommend you to check this presentation again, if you will, if you need. And then, of course, I give you this recommendation on Glow skin aging scale, where you have Glow 1, 2, 3, and 4, and how to use Pavonia more or less in a general descriptive way. So you get essentials, range of Pavonia products in the Glow 1, the Power Repair range for Glow 2, the Lumafirm and Caviar for Glow 3, and the Microretinol and Caviar Stem Cells for Glow 4. And basically, of course, these are interchangeable, so some people may use Glow 4 on Glow 3 products, or vice versa, depending on the situation of the skin. Remember, this is just general. You have to look at the skin situation of every person in particular. So thank you very much. I am sorry I took longer than I wanted, but I felt that condensating this class, which was a lot of information into one class, may not have been easy. But of course, I had my best intention. And of course, that's pretty much what I wanted to convey for you. So I hope you liked it. I hope you got a good insight on the many aspects of cosmetic chemistry in general. I mean, there's so much more, but I would like to say that this is as condensed as I could put it together from previous classes and also from our Pavonia journey. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them over. At your leisure through Cecilia, and I will definitely reply every question you have. So I hope you have enjoyed it, and have a beautiful evening. Enjoy, stay safe and healthy. And if I don't see you before that, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Christian.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Merry Christmas. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.